Hi everyone and welcome to Shaluso. Now today we're going to be talking about why is the Rolex Batman so expensive. Specifically, I'm going to be talking about the 116710 BLNR, the original Batman. Obviously with all the hype around the new Batman that just came out in Basel a few weeks ago, everyone's going crazy over that, but I believe that the real story is on the original. Now the first explanation as to why this watch is so expensive is that it is a Rolex First. And at the end of the day, that matters to collectors and watch buyers. They want to get something that was the first that Rolex did of something. Now some of these firsts do end up coming off about as convoluted as some Oscar categories. But the point is, if it was the first of something, chances are there's a buyer willing to pay a bit more for it. And the story is exactly the same with the Batman. So the Batman, launched in 2013, was the first time that Rolex had actually launched a watch with a bicolor ceramic bezel. In 2005, they launched their Cerachrome bezel on the GMT Master, but it was only one color, and they were adamant that it was impossible to get two colors on that bezel. But a few years later, in 2013, they came out with the Batman, a black and blue stainless steel GMT Master 2 with a Cerachrome bezel. That's right, two-tone, the first time. And this was huge for collectors, because not only had Rolex done something they said was impossible, it was a first, so of course everyone wanted it. On top of that, this was the first time that Rolex ever even used that color combination of black and blue. Past GMT Masters with aluminum inserts had been Cokes, which were black and red, Pepsis or Pan Ams, which were blue and red, or even root beers, which were orange, sort of an orangey brown combination. Up until that point, Rolex had never even done a black and blue bezel. And blue especially is quite important within Rolex because if you think about it, they normally reserve it for their precious metals. Think the Yachtmaster with steel and platinum, or any of the platinum Daytonas or day dates, they feature blue dials. Or even the Submariner with its blue bezel and blue dial white gold smurf. Blue is an important color for Rolex. It's a luxury color for Rolex. So it showing up on a stainless steel model was a big deal, and again, another first. Now the second reason as to why the price on the Batman is so high is because of the fact that it's a stainless steel sports watch. Stainless steel sports Rolex for that matter. Anything that's in stainless steel that is a Submariner, a GMT Master, or a Daytona is in high demand. But let me break down exactly why that high demand exists. People have the perception that in stainless steel it's going to be more accessible. And at retail prices it is. It's significantly cheaper than getting a gold or a two-tone. But because of that, more people can buy it. And therefore, more people want to buy it as well. So what happens is that everyone that on that lower end of the Rolex spectrum is there snapping up these sports watches. And what do they realize? There's not enough production because especially lately, Rolex has ramped down its production on steel models. It creates a vicious circle of lack of supply and high demand. People are able and willing to pay the retail price of the steel Rolex sports watches, but Rolex is restricting the supply. So what happens? People buy them and sell them. And when they sell them, they get more than what they paid for because the demand is so high that people are willing to pay for it. It's gotten to the point where a lot of these are actually the same price or only slightly cheaper than the retail price of a two-tone or even full precious metal equivalent. And this has created sort of a false economy around stainless steel watches. It's a similar thing that you see with Patek Philippe's with the Nautilus or with Audemars Piguet Royal Oaks. It's all about that demand. There's a demand for it such that people are willing to pay extra for it, even though if you look at it on a base material level, it should be much, much cheaper. But that's the ecosystem we're in right now. These watches are in such high demand that it inflates the price. And that's probably the most basic economic reason to explain why. But there are two other reasons I'd like to highlight as to why the Batman is so expensive in general. The next one is the fact that there were lots of rumors it was going to be discontinued. Talking about all that demand, imagine what happens when you have all this demand and at least a year's worth of rumors that the watch is going to be discontinued. That demand keeps rising. People think it's going to be even more scarce. And that's exactly what happened with the Batman. In the months leading up to Baselworld 2019, especially in January and February, there were floods of rumors all over the internet and social media about the Batman being discontinued. It's going away, it's not going to be available. The prices kept shooting up. And there was so much hype for it being discontinued that when Baselworld 2019 came around and they didn't discontinue the Batman, people still wanted to find an excuse to say it was discontinued because they had put all their faith in that. And that's why you have this notion that yes, they've discontinued the Batman on the Oyster with the old movement. It again sounds like a convoluted Oscar category, but people are buying into that. Right now you have an economy in which you have the old Batman, the new one, and the Pepsi released last year in stainless steel, all fighting over the same market, because these are all at the end of the day stainless steel GMTs. And all of this hype, I think, is going to play out over the next few months, maybe over the next year. So it'd be interesting to see who wins out on that. Who's actually going to be the future classic and which one's just going to be a hype beast for the moment. Now the last thing that I want to highlight as to why the Batman is so expensive is probably the most basic. It's a good watch. It's a Rolex at the end of the day. Rolex may carry a certain brand premium on its own just for the name, but it's important to remember that brand premium comes from decades of making high quality watches. And its specialty are stainless steel sports watches. That Batman still has a scratch-proof Cerachrome bezel, 100-meter water resistance, one of the most useful complications around in the GMT. It has a solid movement, that classic Rolex sweep, and Rolex Oyster Steel 904, which is custom made by Rolex for its steel sports watches. So all of these things also factor in. They may not factor into the inflated price, but they provided the foundation for the high starting price to begin with. And all of this inflation and hype has built on top of that. So that's another factor you need to consider. It is still a very good watch. Now the last thing that I want to highlight doesn't necessarily have to do with the Batman, but it does have to do with Baselworld 2019. And that's the fact that while everyone is going crazy over the hype on the new Batman, no one seemed to notice the fact that Rolex also killed off all of its black bezel GMT Masters. If you look at their current lineup as of March 2019, the only watches available are bicolor bezels. So did Rolex just kill off the entire concept of a monochromatic bezel for a GMT Master? Could the real hero, the real one that's going to end up being collectible, be something like the 116710 LN, not the BLNR? We'll have to see whether next year brings an LN model that has the new movement and the new Jubilee. But in any case, it's notable to see the fact that also the gold versions and the two-tone were killed off as well. And Rolex didn't make any noise about that. So it could well be that those were the last of their breed, the last of the monochromatic bezeled GMT Master 2s. Time will only tell, but in any case, I'd love to know in the comments below what you think about all this. What do you think about the three-way battle between the previous Batman, the new one, and the Pepsi? And where do you think the LN will factor into that? Let me know in the comments below what you think. And if you like the video, please do like it and share it. And if you do like this type of content, please do subscribe to the channel as well, as I upload new videos every week all about watches. But in any case, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.